Welcome to On the Brink, a fresh lens to take you and your business to new heights. Welcome. I'm Andi, your host and your guide. And as you know, my job is to help you get off the brink. Wherever you are, I know you're thinking about what's next in your life's journey. And maybe it's time to pause and reflect on where am I now? Where am I going? And how can I get to be the best I can be? So I go looking for people who can really help you see, feel, and think in new ways. Remember, I'm an anthropologist, and observing allows your mind to open up to possibilities. So today I have Roshni Pandey with me. And this is truly an honor and a privilege. Let me tell you about Roshni, because I do think she's got a story that's going to just set the stage for where we're going as women. Roshni is a co-founder of Blue Box, an investment and advisory group nurturing and developing early stage ideas. She's an innovator. She's founded and managing partner of Lexicon, a management consulting firm enabling organizations to build strong foundations, navigate increasingly dynamic trading environments, and drive new growth. Remember, our job is to help you see, feel, and think in new ways to grow. That's in fact what she does as well. She's a firm believer, and this is what I love about the balance between art and science, intuition and data,
Mm.
profitability and purpose. And I'll add something that my clients have been asking for between life and work. Is there a
Yeah.
difference? Maybe it's both. Um, she has a passion for social causes. She has several initiatives, FutureWise, a skills acquisition program, a complementary pillar to the current content focused education system. That's a very important area. Tribe, a social enterprise enabling children and women from underserved communities in Asia Pacific. She has won many awards this year, 2020. She was a Woman Achiever Award at the World Women Leadership Congress and Strategic Business Partner Award at the Business Leader Awards for Blue Box. She's received Asia's Most Influential CMO Award at the World Brand Congress, and she was CME of the Year and Best Leader Award at IHG. While she's Indian by ethnicity, Fijian by birth, Australian by citizenship, Singaporean by residence, and global by mindset. And she's laughing. She has so many passions. But I love the fact her biggest passion is traveling with her husband and her kids, as I did. So, Roshni, thank you for joining me today. It's truly an honor. And our listeners, I know, are going to love your own journey. So, tell us about who are you and where have you been? Where are we going? And how can we all join together to do it?
Firstly, I want to say thank you, Andy. I don't think I've heard all of that in one sitting before. I
But
think
I think
I
it's
think
important.
and I think many a times in life you write these things, right? But you never hear it back, and you never look at it again. So thank you for that, but also thank you for having me on your show. It's a privilege, and I'm so excited to share my journey. I always believe that we all inspire each other. We can read all the books in the world, but I think ultimately we're inspired by people. So I hope that whatever I share today does inspire one or two or more. And I think that will be a win already.
But it's so charming to meet you. And we met through the Women's Business Collaborative.
That's right.
And
Yes.
I emphasize the word collaborative there because this
Mm,
is exactly the kind of beautiful relationships that emerge out of collaboration. But tell
that's
us
true.
your story, because it's a story that I think others want to hear and share, but it also gives them a roadmap for their own journey. So please.
Sure. I'll share from where I was born because I think what has shaped me in terms of who I am today does go quite far back in terms of the early experiences that I've had, and I think just collecting all of those experiences over time and over life, and the people I've met has had a huge influence. So I was born in Fiji, a beautiful, idyllic place, which currently with lockdown, I am like dying to get back to. I still have a few relatives left in Fiji, but I have very fond memories because Fiji is a very tribal culture in terms of village lifestyle and people living in a very tribal communal sense. And by tribe, I don't want to conjure images of, ancient villages and things like that, but really just what the word means. Because I think what you said about collaborative I talk about as a tribe, like people of the same values and people of the same mindset coming together makes a tribe. And I always keep saying to people, you've got to find your tribe.
Yes.
Because they are the people that you don't have to explain anything to. You can be as eccentric as you want, and they still get you. I think that has had a huge influence in terms of how I look at life. Life in Fiji has and always has been quite communal. It's really interesting. The word for borrow and take is quite similar. There's hardly any distinction in that. So I think that just tells you the culture of the place. But I was also quite inspired, I guess, in a way. And I don't think I realized that back then, but only very recently, how much the women in my life back in Fiji had shaped and molded me. So my grandmother, who was self-educated, so she didn't go to school, was, championing women's rights and holding women's councils in villages, teaching them how, some skill or trade that she had, and like really like a leader in her community, kind of corralling women to learn how to sing and make things and be self-sufficient and find happiness in what they were doing. And she used to drag me to these things, and at that age I didn't really enjoy it, but looking back at not what I was doing there, because I was probably daydreaming, but what she was doing there has been really inspiring. And I think that's passed on to my mom. She's always you know I have a younger sister, and she's always pushed the two of us to achieve stuff. We've done everything. She's never stopped us to say, you've got to extracurricular activities, and you've got to hobbies and to sports. So that's it. We were doing everything from dance classes to taekwondo and fighting people and dancing elegantly. And I think that's the age where I kind of first had the sense that you can do it all.
Yes.
There is no real thing that you need to do or are meant to do. You can do it all, and you can make choices in terms of what you want to continue to do. But you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to or you want to explore. There shouldn't really be anybody telling you that you can't do something. The only person that should be doing that is you.
Well, the interesting, as I'm listening to you, I had a professional grandmother and a professional mom as my role models. And I do
Mm,
think we can't go backwards and redo everybody's moms and grandmoms, but the intuitive learning that comes along with that, the
yeah.
values that are transmitted, the stories that we create, begin to create a foundation in you to see the world as possibilities, not as limitations. Wow.
Absolutely. I know, I totally agree. I mean, my grandmother would grow things in her garden and drag me to the market to sell it. And as like a little kid, I was so embarrassed selling, fruits at a vegetable market. I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
But, that's probably what seeded entrepreneurialism. That's probably what taught me how to hustle, right? And taught me how to, negotiate, listening to her. Things that you probably dread as kids um, you know, uh,
Yes.
pay attention to it, because that's formative, and that really does shape you. And I don't think I recognized it then. It's only when you grow up and you reflect and you look back at your journey and you do some of these exercises that says, what was the most formative thing that you remember about entrepreneurialism? It's like, okay, grandma, taking me to the market.
But I remember, in fact, this new book I almost called as what I learned at my grandmother's knee.
Mm,
And I used to stand there
mm,
watching her count the money at the end of the day in her business.
yeah.
And she used to take me in the market and teach me
Mm,
stuff. And I'd say, how do you know what to buy? She says, I don't. And I
mm.
realized it's okay. So, where did it take you on your own journey? Because it sounds like the opportunities were there, but nothing was fixed, everything was possible.
Yeah, so my family, my parents moved to Australia from Fiji. Fiji is a very small country, so I think for a better future for the girls, my parents moved to Australia, and for higher education and things like that. I guess their focus was to give us a bigger world to experience. So I grew up in Australia. I went to school there. And I think Australia is yet another place where equality, in terms of gender at least, was never an issue. Every kid is quite sporty, and every kid is quite outdoorsy. So the gender thing wasn't even an issue growing up. And that set the stage, right? Because as your formative years, you see your mom and your grandmother out there doing things, and then in school, you don't really have a difference. You played all sorts of sports in mixed teams, and there wasn't a girls rugby team, and we all played together. So I think that had a lot of impact in me in terms of my foundation, but also I think my attention to it wasn't there, that this is discrimination and there's such a huge divide. I don't think I thought about that until much later, because it just wasn't present in life as I at least saw it as a child. But I think moving to Singapore was probably the first time where the stark realization of gender first hit me, and race and gender, because I think moving to Singapore, I started to experience certain, at least gender related things that made me question why certain decisions were made, or why I wasn't allowed certain opportunities, or I was a fresh grad looking for a job, and the certain questions that were asked of me, I was very indignant. How what do you mean, do I have my partner's permission to apply for this
Oh,
job?
did you really
What
get asked that?
century are we living in? What does your husband, I think the question was, what does your husband think about the fact that this role involves entertainment?
Oh, goodness gracious.
I
But
sat
I
there
we could
going,
share stories. That is but fascinating. And that was really sort of your epiphany that, oh my, the world isn't what I've been in. It is a
yeah.
different playground. Wow.
Absolutely. And so, I think my response was, it depends on what you mean by entertainment. I think it's fine. I didn't get the job.
Uh, well,
But it was little things like that that kind of starts to make you question, why are these questions posed, and
yes.
has it been asked of me and everyone, or just me? I remember getting to the final stages. I mean, I arrived in Singapore during the Asian financial crisis, so getting a job was super tough, and then being a female, trying to get a job was even tougher. And I remember getting to the final stages, and it was between me and a guy, and they said, oh, but we think that we'll have less issues with him. And it
Uh-huh.
was so blatant. I mean, to tell me
Yes.
that was, as I look back, you can only chuckle, right? But back then I was so defiant and indignant, and how could they? I'm going to correct all of this. And I think that's where things have were seeded, but I didn't do anything about it until recently. So I went through my journey. I did stints at various multinationals, and then there came a time when I moved on to think about what else was it next for me. And I was retrenched in an exercise much earlier on, about 5 years ago. And it's quite a moment as well. Whether you want to leave or you don't want to leave, being
Yes.
asked to leave is always not a nice feeling. And so I think it was a huge reflective moment for me in terms of what I wanted to do next. Did I want to be in the situation where somebody else could tell me to go? Did I want to be in a situation where I wasn't the one in control? What did I want for my future? So I went for various job interviews, but because I had that thought in my head already,
Yes.
nothing worked. I always found a flaw in every job that I interview that I went for. Oh, the place is too far. I don't really like the culture of the company. But I think it was me,
Yes.
trying to figure out what my next new was. And then I started to do some freelance projects. I don't think setting up the company was the first thing that I had in mind. It was a little bit accidental, if
Hmm.
I'm honest. But it was one of those things that I thought I couldn't do, which is
Yes.
why it wasn't in my mind. I was still searching and looking for a structure, because I was so used to a structure. I was led by a process that was designed by a company. It
Yes.
was just different companies, and I never had my own um, I never had my own momentum. I was led by something else. your whole life is dictated by your schedule, and you have your PAs filling in your calendar, and then you roll, right? You don't even accept meetings. So, the amount of control you have in your life is actually very little.
Yes.
And I think all of these things were coming in collision with each other in my mind in terms of, what is it that I wanted to do? But setting up a business or doing something like that was also quite scary. And it was also quite a scary and unstructured thing
Yes.
as well. So being used to structure, I was thinking like, what do I do? Like, what? Nobody's fixed my meetings yet. How do I book? I have to book my own flight for this trip.
Roshni, I'm sorry to laugh, but that is both an opportunity and a scary moment, right? How do I do
Absolutely,
this? Who did this for me?
exactly,
Can I do it?
exactly. And these are things that you just get familiar with. You
Yes.
just get used to. Can you do it? Yes. But you've just been so conditioned to having someone else do it, or that you don't think about it, that it feels like a mountain. But I've learned since then, they are definitely mountains, not just not as many as we make up in our minds.
I know.
um
Well,
you know so
but it's interesting because you had a catalyst there, something that was done to you, and
mm,
now they pushed you into a zone where, well, what's next in my career, in my life? I'm gathering that you never thought about staying home.
no, I can't stay home, Andy.
I,
I yeah.
I ask you because neither my daughters nor myself nor my mother or my grandmother were stay-at-home moms, and
Mm,
people who are say to me, "How can you do that?" And I quietly want to know how they can do what they're doing without judging
mm,
it. But
mm,
life is a journey for me with lots of lefts and
yeah.
rights, and building a business. I mean, I raised kids. I had a great home. I have a great husband, but staying at home, I couldn't figure out what I do. So
Mm,
I'm almost raising it to shut it down as people are thinking, because out of this came opportunities for you. How'd you build a
yes.
business?
Um, I want to go back to the point you made about staying at home. I think because it wasn't a thing for me, I also looked at it as something like, why would you want to stay at home?
Me too.
Right. But and even with the work that I currently do with enabling women to have, an education and have a career, I've also become quite conscious that it might not be a choice that some women want to make just because I
Yes,
make it.
I agree.
Right. So I've realized that there's a difference between wanting it and not wanting it, and not
Yes,
pushing anybody into it. I mean, we all kind of go, with education will come economic freedom or independence, and you can go to work and it wouldn't be great. But some women don't want it, and that's completely fine. and
yes,
and I think that's another big thing, right, in terms of like choices. But it was never a choice for me. I think, if I'm not working for a business, I would be working for an NGO, or doing something. I
yes,
don't think I could just stay at home.
yes,
I like doing multiple things, and what I really love in it is the how they all come together, or
hmm,
how they all kind of clash together to create something else
yes,
out of it. So they all end up being a catalyst to each other in some way, or you steal ideas from one place in your life and bring it to the others. So I like this collision
yes.
of things and ideas happening in my life, and hence Blue Box and Lexicon and Tribe and Kids, etc. But yeah, staying at home wasn't. Um, I wouldn't say it wasn't an option. It just wasn't something
For you,
in my mind,
you know.
and
And I
you know,
raise that because listeners often, we don't. We want to give you things that you can do, but that doesn't mean you can't do other things. And there's
yeah,
a stage to life where things come along. But for you and I, the joy of building
mm,
has been joyful. And to your
yes,
point, it comes from an abundance of ideas that all of a sudden the brain synthesizes into something. You go, ah, and that's
mm,
what I'm going to. And you got
mm.
three of them going. So tell the listeners a little more about how they all began to emerge, because they're different but related.
Yeah. So Blue Box was something that I set up with my husband even before I left work, and it was intended as an angel investment for little ideas that we, thought were important for society, or that was interesting to us, that would not get VC funding, or it would not get funding until a prototype or a concept development to get to that stage. So we started investing in ideas of others to bring it to life. And it was a passive way of doing something that we wanted to do, because both of us were in a position to leave our jobs and kind of do this full time. So Blue Box was started in 2012 when both of us were working, and it slowly grew. So we invested in something, and it was so lovely. The guy who was wanting to sell his business, we eventually ended up investing in him. He said, "I'm trading one dream for another. I want to get married, but I don't have the funds, so I'm selling my startup to start a new life." And we were like, "Well, what if you just," and we were like, "Why aren't you getting an investor?" And they said, "Well, every investor wants majority share and wants me to manage it. I can't manage something that no longer belongs to me then." And so we said, "Okay, well, we'll just invest in it enough for you to stay. And how much do you need for the wedding?" That was the discussion for the first investment. How much do you need for your wedding?
But that fits no box at all, right? I mean, you just
Absolutely.
created a whole new sandbox where
Exactly.
it's not about the ROI on it. It's about collaborating to sustain your dreams.
Exactly. And it
You're
was
a dream
something that
builder.
we both of us were kind of excited about, because he was in experience gifting, and it's something that's to me was a brilliant idea, because we were often gifting products and creating clutter and things like that, and this was really about kind of what kind of experience could you gift somebody, and curating it and things like that. So I thought it was a very novel idea. It would be a shame if it died. So we ended up investing in him. He ended up running it, and it did quite well. And it's not often that your first investment or startup works out, but
Yes.
somehow we were lucky, because maybe it wasn't built on hard data and science. There was a lot more heart to it than there was science to it, and it did really well. And it's been sold to a major corporation now. But that was our first one, and since then we've invested in small ideas. We've either invested capital or our time, depending on what's required. So when I left in 2015, I was doing a bit of that, but I started to get a little bit more into the entrepreneurial world, and going and attending startup meets and meeting people in terms of, others who were doing, interesting things, drone technology. I mean, there's so many interesting things. And you realize that when you're at work, you only see one world.
That's right.
You just see it deeper, and you get very jaded, or you get very, skeptical about things, and you think things don't move. But when you step into this world, entrepreneurial world, there are so many different things, and people have such eclectic, diverse ideas. So it kind of fueled from there, because I had time to give to it.
Yes.
And on the side, I mean, you still have to have your cash projects going. So on the side, I was still consulting, and slowly that was growing too. And something that I felt like, why would anybody be interested in my advice? Like, isn't that common sense? Or isn't that rational? But then I realized that things that are rational to me may not be, and things that are common sense to me may not be, and things that I see, the way that I see it, maybe others can't see.
Yes.
And I've been building on those skills and strengths of things that are quite intangible. And if anybody had said, put it on your CV or put it in profile, I wouldn't have. But my learning has been that these are super valuable skills to have, to be able to connect the dots. I mean, aren't those things we play when we're kids?
Yes.
What do you mean? But yeah, these are the things that I started to value in myself, because others were doing it, not that I was doing it. And so slowly the consulting business grew, and then I thought it was time to legitimize it instead of running it, kind of more as an independent freelancer. So Lexicon was born, because it is, it is about my lexicon. It is about the way that I want to communicate what I want to communicate. And
it's a great title
I
for
always,
the company, by the way. I love it.
I
Because
know,
it
right?
is, right?
A friend of mine
Called it, huh?
christened it. Yes, she takes full credit for it, and it's something that I've grown to love immensely, because one of the things that I found when I was um, working was that a lot of the consultants would come in and they would tell you what the data tells them, and they would tell you, this is what we've found, but they will never share their opinion, or
Uh-huh.
they'll never share their thoughts, or they were reluctant to, because it is not supported by data. And I think I would like to believe that, with lexicon we say, well, this is what the data is telling us, but I think you should do this, and we try to separate it so that it's clear. But I think it's a valuable part of how you've
Yes.
synthesized the information. So lexicon was born, and it continues to grow. I have two business partners now in the
Great.
business, and we have a team that supports us, but it's a very agile team. We have someone in India. We all work remotely. We don't have expenses, so that we can share whatever we
Yes.
make, and everybody can work from wherever. And this started about 3 years ago, before COVID. So, we were innovating the future of work before this. And then tribe has been something that I've been quite passionate about, but again, it wasn't formalized. We've been doing little things, but they have been haphazard, and honestly, they didn't really have much impact, because you help something and then you move away from it, you go and help
Yes.
something else. uh, there is no sustainability, and therefore there's no impact. So we decided to systemize it a little bit, so that there's continued support and effort behind whatever we are committed to. And so we've identified certain partners that we work with, and we work with partners in Philippines, in Fiji, because it's just close to heart, and in India. We're looking at Nepal, and we're also looking at Cambodia. So we haven't started anything in Cambodia and Nepal, but we're definitely doing the groundwork to find partners. So yeah, it's been things that have, in some way, shape, or form, been part of our lives. It's just systemizing it. So I think, with viewers listening, we're all doing it. It's just some of us go ahead and then make it into a structure, or formalize it, or systemize it, and it becomes a thing, right? We brand it
Yes.
and it becomes a thing. But how many things are we doing in life already
Yes. Yep.
that, if just packaged rightly?
There are two things or three things I want to pull out of what we're talking about, though, because I've been working on a program to help women rethink their life's journey.
Mm,
And to develop it, I've been working with 10 women who have been volunteering to help me work with them to better understand where they are, where they're going. And your story is important because there's no straight line. It's
mm,
not as if you thought, okay, tribe or lexicon. I mean, we wander our way through. It's okay to test things out, even if they're not intentionally testing. Blue Box started as a heart, and then began to see. I'm married to a serial entrepreneur. I get it. Uh, and we can talk at some point about his series of businesses, but he grew his to the fifth largest in the US from zero and then
wow.
sold it. And we live happily ever after. But it wasn't the first, and it's not even his
Yeah.
last. But the interesting part about yours is that as a model for others, the story emerges out of the things that matter to us. So some of
Mm,
the women are very accomplished professionals in different ways, and life isn't satisfying.
mm,
And another woman lost her business in COVID and wants to know what to do
mm,
next and isn't sure she would even go back to the other. Another woman is a CEO of a large whatever and 11 years there, but not really happy, not really sure
mm,
why not happy. And we
mm,
are asking some good questions, women are, about what makes me the best I can be? Where do I have my purpose? But
mm.
as listening to you is helpful to them because we don't really know. We just
Yeah.
do things that give us an echo back that say, that matters. That gives us
Mm.
purpose, or that I don't ever want to do again. and and I never want to be back in a corporate environment. I mean, I'm gone for 20 years now. It served its purpose well, taught me a lot,
Mm,
and it got me out of being just an anthropologist, but being a corporate
mm.
anthropologist. And I couldn't have launched the business if I hadn't been in corporate. But
Yes.
all kinds of things emerged. The other thing I want to emphasize is seeing. We
Mm,
decide with the heart and the eyes,
mm,
not the data. So I once
mm,
taught, several times I've taught a course for healthcare strategists called Your Data is Talking to You. Can you hear it? And because data is telling you a story, but it usually affirms your current story and you don't see the data that contradicts it.
Mm,
And so I want to emphasize that if you're working with consultants, it really is what do you see and how does it feel is much more important than the data they're using to protect themselves. So, but it's
yeah,
fun. What do you see coming
it's a
next, ma'am? Go ahead, please.
no, I was just going to add to that I think whether it's society or even the books we read or the theory we've learned, it tells us to structure things in a particular way, and that's the steps to success. Or it tells us that if you do this, this will happen. And I get it. It's tried and tested, and it's worked for many. But if you're someone who finds joys in things that are off the beaten track, or you want to do things differently,
Yes.
then that may not work for you. And I think with everything, I knew I wanted to do something social. I don't want to compromise the quality of my life in terms of being able to take great holidays with kids and do the
Yes.
things we want to do with kids. At the same time, I love innovating, but those are not going to kind of be immediately financially rewarding. So each thing always comes with a pro and con attached to it. And when
Yes.
we attach our lives to that one thing, we're constantly in this battle of like, well, it's
Yes.
kind of good, but it's not really great. And so I think assembling the kind of life that you want, where
Yes.
each component gives you what you want or makes up for the things that the other component doesn't have. Like, for example, Blue Box is great. It's really inspiring. And, when you meet these people, you think there's so much hope for humanity and there's so much that can happen. But is it going to return financially every single time or in the near future? Not really. So that's where Lexicon fits in, right? And do either one of these always give you the ability to help anyone that you want to?
Yes.
Because it's always attached to a ROI or a particular thing that the client has already chosen, and that's where Tribe fits in. It's
Hmm.
helping those that can't or aren't in a situation to help themselves. They may not be beneficial to any corporation or be
Yes.
able to be of value to anyone, but you still can help them because
Yes.
it's devoid of any constraints or ROI.
Yep.
So it's been an assembly of things that help out, and that's why with Lexicon we don't intend to build it into something super huge because it has a role in our portfolio.
Yes.
It has a particular role to play, and it's great where it is.
Yes.
So I think it's also do you what is the desire for that entity that you're building, what that you're growing? Is it to make it into the biggest thing on the planet? Why? Right?
Yes.
Grow it into something that it where it plays a
Yes.
role for you, and that's
Yes, sir.
where it needs to stop or land. So I think that's been also a learning because we've always been taught about incrementality, right? And we've
Yes.
always been taught to keep growing and keep building, and but I think it's okay to say no. It's okay
No.
to say I stop here because it fulfills its purpose.
Yes.
So yeah, there's been a lot of learnings like that in the 5 years, and it's been funny. I've been working for so many years before this, and I've enjoyed all my roles. I've learned so much, and they equip me to do what I do today. So absolutely, but the 5 years have been a massive, massive growth spurt. And
Yes.
I'll tell you something funny. When I was retrenched and I was looking at what I would do, I was asking my husband, "So am I retired now? Like, there's nothing else I can do? This is it?
Oh.
That's all I had to give? Like, I'm done, right?" And it's just taken on
A whole new life.
a trajectory of its own.
This
So
is
yeah,
such a
it's
treat. Roshni, as we're, we could talk for a long time. Our lives have so many
no,
parallels, but I'd like you to help the listener think about one or two things that you would like them not to forget, because they tend to remember the ending even better than the beginning. But the richness of our story has been terrific. Some things you just like to leave them with.
yeah, I think there's two things. One is create a structure that belongs to you.
Hmm.
Don't try to copy somebody else's structure. Learn from their structure. Read all the books you want. They have great tips, but create a structure that works for you. Whether you want to go to work, whether you don't want to go to work, whether you want to grow a business to a particular size, whatever. But it has to be a structure that works for you. And I think that's super important. And I learned that I feel I've learned that too late in my life. So I would love for some younger women to learn this way before. And I think, we get told you can't have your cake and eat it too, you can't have it all. I think we can. I really think we can.
I'm not going to applause, but I agree. I don't know who ever created that sentence, but I don't like it at all.
No, I think we can have multiple cakes and eat all of them if we desire. We just choose not to.
Well, I'll add to yours. I like to assemble the kind of life you want and make it happen. And trust your
Yes.
heart. It's okay,
Mhm,
and you don't need the data. You
mhm,
do need a heart and an eye and a brain that says, "This is what I want. Let me make it
mhm.
happen," and you can do it. This has been such fun. I'm honored to have you here. It's great. If they would like to reach you, to hire you, to learn more about the programs and the businesses that you have, what's the best place for them to get a hold of you?
I think LinkedIn would be awesome. It has all the information that they would need to find out about what it is that I do. So I think that would probably be the best platform, or they can reach me via your podcast or any details that you have. So yeah, I'm happy with either one of those
Yes.
routes.
Yeah, LinkedIn has certainly become a place to go, hasn't
Yes,
it? Talk about reinventing what was sort of a business directory into a life for all of us. It's a really cool
exactly.
time.
Your
So
black book.
I know this has been more fun than fun. Let me wrap up for our folks who come and visit. I can only tell you your thank you emails and your kudos and your suggestions about who else we should bring on are truly appreciated. Don't stop sending me emails to info@andysimon.com. And I love the fact that you share, collaborate. It's fun, but it's also a time for us to become the best that we can be. So, my job is to help you see, feel, and think in new ways so you can do just that. And our new book comes out, Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women in Business. It may actually be out for you. It is a time for you to begin to rethink where are you in your own journey and how you can become the woman you'd like to be or the guy as well. I mean, the stuff inside that book is as good for men as it is for women because all of those women became who they are because they had guys to help them support them. And my guy has been with me for 52 years and we keep helping each other smile a lot. So please stay healthy, stay well, keep smiling, enjoy life, and become the best you can be. Thanks again. Bye now.